Well, hi there. Today we're going to talk about strengthening the CEO-CHRO bond. And this is basically a summary of all the roundtable discussions that we had at the BigHR event this year. And before we get started, I'd like to thank Nicole Bonanno for helping me compile the data from this discussion. Let's talk a little bit about how we gathered this data so that you have the background. We had basically 18 different roundtable discussions. At each table, there's maybe 5 to 6 HR leaders, plus there was a CHRO mentor. This mentor was responsible for helping facilitate conversations, as well as sharing some of their own experiences. At each table, there was a scribe, so somebody who was taking notes, and then these notes were gathered, and that is where Nicole was helping me basically compile this information and put it into these sites that we're going to share today. The topics we came up with, these three, were really as a result of mastermind meeting workshops. So our mastermind members went through and basically did a brain dump of different types of challenges they felt were present when working with CEOs. And since our whole topic at the BigHR event was really building that CHRO-CEO bond, we wanted to get their mind share. From there, they voted on the top topics that they felt that the BigHR event attendees should focus in on. The three were how to keep CEOs focused on HR initiatives when there's so many other business priorities, right? Number two, how to address CEOs who make decisions without ample data and have a tendency of using anecdotal data. And third and lastly, avoiding or skipping the foundational HR type work and really prioritizing some of the sexier high value talent management tasks or projects. So those are the three different roundtable discussions that we had. So in this room, we had probably close to 150 professionals. And as I mentioned, we had mentors at each table who were there to help the group have the most robust, open, honest conversation. And so I wanted, once again, to thank our table facilitators and mentors for their work. And of course, thank you to Nicole for taking all of the notes from the session and helping me compile this data. All right, so we're going to split this video up into three different parts because there's a lot of information to cover. And this way, if you have an interest in one topic over another, you can pick and choose which topic you are more interested in diving into. Okay, so for today's recording, we're going to talk about keeping the CEO focused or accountable to HR initiatives amidst other business priorities. In each session, we went through a discussion around what was the root cause of the challenge. So what are the common themes as to why this is a challenge? We go through basically the any unique ideas or perspectives that we heard from the group. Didn't necessarily mean that these were common themes, but what we felt were really unique ideas or perspectives, as well as some really actionable solutions. All right, so let's deep dive into each one of these now. So some of the common themes as to the root cause of why CEOs have a hard time staying focused on HR initiatives amidst all the competing business priorities. It was lack of alignment. So if HR was not connecting the dots to the business priorities or framing the problem to solve business challenges, you would see those getting off track. The other common theme is that CEOs perhaps lacked context. And what they meant by this is that CEOs often, if they don't come from organizations in their past where they experienced strategic HR, they really had no context as to the value that HR could bring to the business and really didn't know what to expect. So there's a big learning curve involved and education period for the HR leaders to help the CEO get up to speed. The third common theme was board accountability. So if the board wasn't focused on people initiatives, neither was the CEO. The fourth theme was really that perhaps HR is not viewed as a strategic partner. So whether that was because of the lack of context from the CEO or truly the HR team didn't have the strategic consultative skills required to be a strategic partner and be able to help align the business needs and strategic priorities to HR capabilities. And last but not least is that perhaps HR was not effective at consultative selling skills. So how do they really communicate the value that HR can bring to impact the business? And a side note on that is that sometimes it's hard, right, to articulate the ROI when it comes to long tail talent management issues. But really the conversation, both at these roundtables as well as so many that I hear about, is the lack of consultative selling skills. All right, so now let's jump into some of the unique ideas or perspectives. I mean, there were just so many great ideas. And for those of you who are interested in reading all the details and all the notes from these sessions, we will have that document available as well. But really, these were some of the really unique ones that we had not heard a lot in the past. And one was people problems are really hard to deal with. And this is something that we hear a lot, that the C-suite is really interested in more strategic HR priorities, people priorities that will help advance the business. But then when it comes down to, here's the time it takes for you to get involved and really, say, do this calibration right or really do succession planning right, sometimes they're surprised at the energy that it takes to really do this right. So one big area is that people problems are hard to deal with, and that is potentially why it's challenging to keep the CEO really focused on HR priorities. The second idea, which I thought was really interesting, is that perhaps HR needs more skin in the game. And an example of that might be, for example, in talent acquisition, it's easy to measure things like, time to fill, cost per hire, basic metrics like that. What about being held accountable for quality of hire, right? And perhaps the revenue that's generated or the financial impact that the hires have. The third area is a mindset shift. And I think they were talking both about the C-suite CEO having a mindset shift that HR is a business priority, and also a mindset shift from the perspective of HR professionals, that HR really is a revenue-generating financial impact function within the organization. And then also when presenting, to use the words "so that." We learned this from our speaker, our awesome speaker this year, about using the word "so that," meaning the reason we want to improve employee experience is so that we can retain more employees, so that we can drive more revenue, right? So tying it back, using the "so that" words in order to tie it back to business priorities. There's also a discussion around really that executives, and especially the CEO, could be experiencing burnout, right? Especially after the past few years, there could be a little bit of burnout going on. And then there's so many demands required of our C-suite today, and shifting leadership styles to be successful in today's world. And so we talked about how there could be quite a bit of burnout within the CEO and the C-suite. And this one's a little bit sad, but the ego equation. So sometimes maybe CEOs feel that HR is beneath them because their perspective is that HR is about party planning and about just getting people paid and getting people fired, but really needing to help shift their perspective and presenting HR initiatives in the context of the risk mitigation or strategic levers for growth. So in the roundtable discussions, we asked the groups to talk about actionable solutions. So here are 6 great solutions and that you can take action with today. Number 1, exec talk. So making sure that the business knowledge about the organization goes beyond just the CHRO, that the entire HR team knows how to speak business versus HR talk. And the groups coined it as exec language. So making sure that the CHRO isn't the only one who is really getting that business acumen tuned up. The second one was aligning with the business strategy. So HR leaders should really ensure that initiatives are directly related to organizational goals, making it easier for the CEOs to understand their value. For example, when I ran an organization, if the talent acquisition team came to me and said, hey, we need more recruiters, we need more research dollars, we need more ad dollars, whatever the case, if they didn't tie that back to here's how it affects our ability to meet our quotas this year, it was a tougher conversation to have. So really making sure that these initiatives align with business strategies. And for sure, growing top line at that point in time was a huge strategic priority for us. The third one is deliver tangible results. So when possible, making sure that HR is really focused on tangible outcomes to really gain that credibility and attract more investment dollars from the top. I know it's not always easy to measure that ROI or to show tangible results, but I'll tell you, sometimes I think we overcomplicate things. One of the things, for example, our talent acquisition team wanted to measure, in addition to time to fill and cost per hire, was the quality of hire. And we went round and round and round and tried to figure out what's the best way to measure quality of hire. And our COO at the time, who was a master at simplification and really making things actionable and easy to implement, basically came up with 3 questions for the clients to answer. And that was easy to execute, but also very tangible to measure. The fourth area is to make sure that you take a data-driven approach. Make sure you've got the data and the scorecards. A lot of CEOs are, personality-wise considered driver analytics or data-driven type of personalities. And so they don't just want to hear how we feel about it, but they want to see with the numbers exactly what's behind it. The other suggestion is to make sure that as HR leaders, we are proactive instead of reactive, and being persistent in our engagement with the CEO. So instead of waiting for the CEO to ask about something, making sure that there is scheduled one-on-one meetings with the CEO to touch base on these strategic priorities. So the last one is leveraging C-suite involvement. So getting other C-suite executives involved. The people who I've seen, the CHRs who I've seen really be able to influence and get things done, it's not always because it's their idea, but it's one that they have socialized with other C-suite executives. For example, the CFO, and having them help push it up to the CEO. Okay, so that wraps up the first roundtable discussion. The quick summary. If you'd like to read more about the roundtable discussions, we have the PDF for you to download, as well as in that download there's a link that you can go straight to all the raw data. It's a lot of information, mind you, but if you're interested in seeing all of the recommendations and the challenges, feel free to download that as well. All right, in our next video, we're going to come back and talk about how CEOs sometimes make decisions without enough data, and really placing more value on anecdotal experiences over the data that's available. All right, we'll see you in the next video.